Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Bootcast with Irish Bootstrapper. I'm your host Eugene Devereaux and this is Series 3, Episode 5. Our next guest on the show is a very apt, very appropriate guest. He's a man who has served time in the army, has overcome many challenges himself in his own life, and now works as a change specialist with organisations and individuals. So very appropriate to have him on as the world goes through the whole COVID-19 scenario. We have some great book recommendations in today's episode as well as some tips and tricks that you too can use at home to help you to overcome different challenges, maybe mental challenges, or just to deal with COVID or any of your new realities that you're facing or going to face. So without further ado, please welcome Mr. Stephen McDonnell on Series 3, Episode 5, Mental Awareness with Stephen McDonnell. Stephen, thanks for coming on the show.
Not at all. Delighted to be asked.
Cheers. Very good. So Stephen, for anybody watching or listening, can you tell us a bit about yourself, what you do, where you're from, and what's your story?
Yeah, I suppose I'm from Navan, so it's in County Meath, 50 kilometres northwest of Dublin. So it's small town, well, big town for Ireland, small town for the rest of the world. I am a coach, so I help people basically go through change, and I'm an organizational change coach as well. So I work with organizations on that side as well. I was asked about this a couple of times this week, and the best description I have is if people are willing to take the red pill, I work with them to make sure that they can actually get through that process and become the person, the leader, the organization that they want to become.
Brilliant. Super. So a change specialist is kind of...
That'd be the best way to put it, yeah.
Yeah. And just, I suppose, because we're in amidst the middle of COVID-19, like coping with COVID can be kind of hard for people, and there's a lot of change happening at the moment. So, what would be top tips? Say top 3 tips that you could give people today to improve their mood and build resilience into their mindset, I suppose.
Yeah, I think resilience is one of those buzzwords at the moment. A lot of people trying to figure out what that means and what it means to develop it. I suppose 3 big tips that I would always give people, and it doesn't matter what you want to do, is first of all, breathe. I think we spend a lot of time doing a lot of things and we forget to concentrate on our breath. So if we actually breathe properly, breathe well, that has a big impact. The second one would be sleep. I've been doing a lot of reading into sleep recently, and the impact of lack of sleep just across our lives in general in so many ways is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And the third is get out and about. Like we are in, I call it hibernation. I'm very passionate about words. I think words have a really important meaning. We're in hibernation at the moment, so we are going to come out of it, but we can get out and about. I think movement helps you get more breaths, get you out and about into fresh air. I think those 3 things are probably my top 3 tips.
I suppose keeping on kind of people's mental health. Like, I know there can be a stigma attached to mental health where
huge.
People kind of
it's breaking down. It is shifting. And I have seen. Let's look at the benefits of this hibernation mode. There's been a really strong discussion around mental health and mental wellness and mental awareness. And I've noticed a shift in language as well, which has been quite subtle, but I think really going to serve everybody going forward. Where when people are talking about mental health, they're talking about other people. And now when people are talking about mental health for themselves, they're talking about mental awareness. I'm more aware of how I feel. I'm aware of what sensations I'm feeling. So I'm hearing more people talk about mental awareness, which I think is something that if we recognize and double down on, people can get a huge amount of benefit from that.
That's interesting because, I kind of suffered with my mental health in the past, and you do kind of self-consciously think that's this idea that you're kind of isolated now into this box. Oh, their mental health, the poor chap, and then everybody else is normal, kind of.
Yeah, it's like the old days where he's taken to his bed. But yeah, no, and look, I had a wobble myself in 2012, and anybody who hasn't probably will in the future, and a lot of people who have don't necessarily want to talk about it. But I think being open and straight about it, you can help so many people, because when you talk about it and explain it, people can go, actually, that's what I'm feeling. And I was watching a short video there recently, Rory Stories. He's a guy up in Ashburn.
Yeah.
And he did one where he called one of his workmates who was missing out on calls. And it's quite interesting that the language that his workmate used to describe what could be described as a low moment or a slight bit of depression, or it was just a different way of describing it. And I think that that ability to talk about it allows different directions of description to come in, which allows people to realize, okay, well, actually, I'm struggling. So how can I get past this? And like the one absolutely wonderful thing about where we are today is there's so much information about how to use your strengths. And that's what I'm passionate about is use the strength inside you. And that's why I love coaching, because coaching is all about your strengths. It's not about me telling you what to do. It's about let's figuring out what can you do with your strengths.
Yeah.
And using them to become a better person. It's fantastic.
Brilliant. And you mentioned there before, just like the description and the way that people describe stuff. Like how important are the words that people use?
I did a webinar this week with Kinch Lyons on language, and it's quite funny how important words are. And like there's one word that I love and I'm really getting through at the moment, and it's from a book by Carol Dweck called Mindset, and it's about developing a growth mindset. And it's the word yet. And if you say something like, I can't do that, your brain goes, okay, well, I'm not even going to try. But you put yet at the end of that. I can't do that yet. Your brain goes, okay, well, let's see how we can get there. And it just allows that to happen an awful lot better. Another one I love is don't. So do you ever notice on the radio shows, and particularly when Hector was on the radio, he had the quiz.
Oh, yeah.
Quiz. And the first thing he says, don't panic.
Yeah.
What that's actually doing is telling your brain to panic.
Yeah.
There's a study that was done, I think it was the white elephant or the pink elephant. So people were told, half of the people in the study were told, think of a white elephant. And half of the people were told, don't think of a white elephant.
Yeah.
The cohort who were told, don't think of a white elephant, thought of it twice as often as the cohort that didn't.
It's amazing. It's frightening as well, because if you think about...
Let's think about how we talk about our own language. Don't have that drink. Don't eat that cake. Don't do that. All your brain is hearing is do that, do that, do that. And for me, like in Ireland, one of the big things that I get frustrated with is the drinking driving campaign. Like I prefer an approach of make a choice, drink or drive. We have nationally a slogan, don't drink and drive. And the brain hears drink and drive.
Yeah.
So it's actually self-defeating from the linguistics. And even to give you an example, I'm going to tell you to think of something that we haven't talked about and your listeners wouldn't have talked about in the last few minutes, but don't think of a giraffe. Yeah. Boom. It's in the head.
Straight away. Jesus. Oh, it's mad. Just kind of on travel, a lot of the guests and kind of one of the themes of the podcast is around travel. But what have you learned from travel yourself?
I don't like airplanes. It's a great thing. With my previous role, I used to do a huge amount of traveling in 2009. Like I did 42 trips into Europe. It was a lot of airport time, a lot of travel time. I learned, that's probably the best thing about it was I learned to use the time wisely. So I would use audiobooks. I've Audible on my phone. I consume audiobooks at a massive rate. I hate just sitting there just wasting time. And I also love watching people. Like when you're in the airports and you just watch people, you can see how different people react and what they do, and you can nearly predict through somebody's walk if they're feeling anxious what they're going to do next. And it's that level of human awareness is something I really enjoy about traveling.
Yeah. The airport is it's a funny place.
It is.
What's the most adventurous thing you've ever done?
This is an interesting question because there's a couple of different things that kind of pop in as adventurous. I suppose starting my own business was a big one. So walking away from the old, as they say, permanent pensionable job, but it was adventurous but planned and structured. Another adventurous thing, I was thinking about this over the last couple of days, jumping off Dundee Pier
Right.
in full combat gear with a backpack.
Right.
Which every cell in your body was saying, stop, don't do that, you're stupid.
Yeah.
But it was part of a confidence training program within the army. And it was things like that when I think about them, they were really adventurous in relation to pushing myself forward.
Yeah.
And I gained a huge amount from it in relation to confidence and the understanding of how to actually to overcome a narrative in my own mind.
And how high was the pier?
I'd say it was about 3 seconds in a drop. So I'd say it's about 15, maybe probably about 8 to 10 meters.
Yeah. Jeez, yeah.
But when you're going down, it feels like an age because you're expecting to be in water and it hasn't happened. And then you'd put out a breath and all of a sudden you're underwater and you can't breathe.
and what was the hardest part of that whole sequence of action?
The hardest part was actually stepping off.
Yeah.
And I suppose the really interesting part in that was when we got back up, the next phase of that was actually stand up on a table, which is only about 2.5, 3 feet higher.
Yeah.
And it was 4 to 5 times harder to step off.
Really? Yeah. Jeez.
On that, yeah, because you knew what was happening.
Yeah.
You knew what was coming next. But the things like that I've managed to push through. Like I wouldn't be the best man for heights, but even doing climbing poles for adventure courses, for leadership development courses, just pushing myself and recognizing the fear. And I'm a firm believer in face your fears. It's a massive resilience store because if you face your fears, you know that when you have that feeling and you don't know what it's from, you can move through it.
Yeah, it's brilliant. You mentioned then in the pre-interview just about the marathon.
Yeah. Done 2 of them.
So tell me about...
Yeah, that is, I suppose, a huge achievement was the first one. 1993, I did it with a friend of mine, Rob Kelly. We had a great idea to run the marathon, and we had all these ideas about how to train from it and the whole lot. Realistically, the marathon was on a Monday. The Thursday beforehand, we did an 8-kilometer run, which was, looking back on it, not very clever. But we managed to do the marathon and did the marathon 3 hours, 3 minutes.
3 hours, 3 minutes?
Yeah.
Whoa, that's a super time.
It was fantastic. Oh, look, we were young and fit at the time, and a bit more hair, which helped as well.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah, that was a great achievement. And again, it's that focus on mindset that, like with marathon running, 80% of it's in the mind.
Yeah, and
if you're physically fit, you can run it.
And would you have had a good baseline? Were you relatively fit up to the 8K?
Yeah, no, in fairness, I would have been quite fit.
Yeah.
Well, relatively fit. I won't say quite fit compared to some of my peers at the time, but I was in the army. We're after going through doing my apprenticeship training at the apprentice school in Nice. So we would do regular PT, regular fitness, and there'd be a fair bit of competition in the platoon as well to make sure that people to actually do the runs, because nobody wants to be last.
Yeah. And did you think before going into the marathon that, okay, did you have a goal in mind, or were you going in with, oh, this is going to be a struggle?
No, the goal in mind was to finish it.
Yeah.
And like the approach we took and the kind of the mindset on it was we've done that across the Wicklow Hills.
Yeah,
and if you do 26, 25, 30 kilometers on a hill, running it on reasonably flat ground shouldn't be too bad, because you got runners instead of boots. You don't have a weight in your back.
Yeah.
So there's all the kind of the sensible things around that as well.
Yeah.
And I love, a bit of peer pressure probably popped in there as well. If you say you're going to do it, you got to do it.
It's good stuff. Well done. What would have been your biggest kind of life lessons that you've kind of learned from being in the army then?
Yeah, I spent a year in South Lebanon with the UN, and I learned a huge amount about life during that phase. I learned a lot, and at the time I didn't know how to verbalize it, but I've read a book since called Power versus Force. But I learned a lot about the benefit of power and the benefit of force.
Yeah.
So power is when you want to do something, you can make it happen. And like the Irish in South Lebanon had a huge amount of power, and it was societal power because it was through respect and through the visibility of the Irish battalion living their Irish culture in South Lebanon. Like they were very caring for the community, and they got a huge amount of respect and a huge amount of kudos as a result of that.
It's interesting.
And the flip side of that is the power, where it's akin to oppression, and you had different organizations trying to wield their power, and through wielding the power, you got a lot of struggle and a lot of negativity. So as a result of that, I've been, and it's one of the things that I would look at, and particularly in organizations when I'm working at them, is the change happening through force, or through power? And if it's through force, it tends not to be. It tends to be short-lived. If it's done and there's power from it, it tends to be longer living.
Oh, interesting. And that book as well that you mentioned, Power versus Force.
Power versus Force. I can't remember the author of it, but it's a tough read. But it's really well worth reading. It's a good insight into a lot of things. Like if you look at like a simple thing, a lump of concrete, that's force, holding what's underneath it to grow through. But no matter how long you leave a lump of concrete, there'll always be a sort of plant that will come through it, and that's power. And it doesn't matter how much force you use, the power tends to win through the whole time.
It's good. It's a good analogy. Any other good book recommendations?
Oh, I love books. My absolute favorite one, and one I would remind or advise everybody to read, is Atomic Habits by a guy called James Clear.
I just got it myself.
Oh, phenomenal book.
I'm looking forward to starting it. I'm reading 3 other books at the moment, but
I've recommended that to so many people, and they've pulled away so many benefits from it. It is without the best book I read last year. Absolutely phenomenal, easy read. What I really like about it, there's a huge amount of it based on research and on science. It's not like you can get a lot of books that are, some people call it a little bit airy-fairy. But that is really sharp, to the point, how to make it happen. I've learned so much. I'm very thankful to James Clear for that as well.
Brilliant. Just when you mentioned airy-fairy, have you read, I'm finishing off one at the moment, it's called The Secret. It's sold millions of copies. Have you read that one? Yes. What's your take on it?
There's bits in it that I kind of resonate with. I thought the funniest thing I've heard about The Secret was I was at a talk with Dr. John DeMartini.
Oh yeah.
And his take on The Secret, which I thought was quite funny, was he was interviewed for 3 hours and they used 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So there's certain parts of it in there. And look, I'm a firm believer, if something helps somebody to get through something, it's good. It wouldn't be my go-to. I've listened to the audiobook. I haven't bought a copy of it. There are, I think, more powerful books out there to help people achieve change and to achieve better. Like one that I'm really enjoying at the moment is by 2 Irish psychologists and psychiatrists, The Power of Small by Aisling and Trish Curtin-Smith, and it's based on acceptance and commitment therapy, which is really kind of finding its feet at the moment. That's a really, really good book for anybody who's struggling. Another one that's really good is First Make the Beast Beautiful. I can't remember who it's by. It's by a lady who used to be the involved in Cosmopolitan in Australia, and she suffered with OCD and anxiety, and it's a very candid and very raw view of what it's like to live with anxiety and with OCD and other topics around that area. And it's a very insightful read, and I think a lot of people could get some real benefit from that as well if they are challenged or if they feel they're struggling.
Brilliant, super. What has been your most proud professional moment to date?
Proud professional moment. Well, I like one that I really kind of look back on is in my previous role. I was asked to organise an international event where business leaders from different parts of the world for the company I was working with brought them all to Ireland, set up a full conference for the couple of days. And I had the keynote of about 45 minutes. And within that 45 minutes, I had structured a kind of a conversation with type of approach. And that allowed an awful lot of change to come into that organization as a result. So I'm very, very proud of that. Another one, and again, it's similar company, was in 2008, 2009, it went through a takeover and been asked to lead I was leading a team of 5 at the time, and then been asked to take on board a team of 25. And that developed into external subcontractors across multiple streams of the business as well. Okay. I think they would be two that I would put up there as big achievements.
Brilliant. Good stuff. Admirable leaders, or people who are kind of in leadership either now or in the past.
Yeah, and I suppose one now, and people there are political people who will berate me for it. But where we are at the moment, like we're in our day 64, I think, of the schools being off with COVID-19 here in Ireland. We're in hibernation for a lot. But one person who's really stood up in my rating as a good leader has actually been Simon Harris.
Yeah.
For a person who absolutely got slaughtered in the elections, slaughtered before the elections, wasn't given us any sort of credibility, and people try to break him down, to stand up and take what really is a monumental challenge on. And he's done it so well. Like there's a couple of things that I think he's done fantastic, and this is at a governmental level as well. The separation of the political talk and the medical talk. So allowing the CMO and the health service to talk without politicians being present.
Yeah,
we're one of the few countries I've seen that happen, and it's brought people so much trust in that area. His engagement with particularly kids and the recognition of the impact of all these things, and for me, that's what a leader emulates, is actually awareness. Because I qualified in training and administering emotional intelligence assessments, and emotional intelligence is about understanding yourself, understanding others, and understanding everything around you. I think he's really shown that in so many ways over the last number of months, and particularly in a job where he technically doesn't have anymore. which if you're going to stand up and be counted for and do something where you technically are not meant, like that's fantastic. Another one would be the Prime Minister of Australia, or of New Zealand. I think she's been fantastic. Like, you had the shooting down there, you've had the earthquakes, you've had their readjustment of their financial policy in relation to wellness measurements rather than GDP measurements, and then the approach that they've taken on COVID as well. I think they're going against so many things that people would consider as the standard normal to make change for is the better good. Like, that's phenomenal power. And even the vulnerability that she shows when she's unhappy, she shows she's unhappy. When she's sad, she's no problem. And well, she had, I won't say no problem, but she was able to share her loss when the shootings, and being able to normalize bringing a child into the workplace. Like, that's something that we've all enjoyed over the last couple of months, is the ability to be real humans and to say, actually, I'm not working from home. I'm doing my full-time job from home in a crisis.
Yeah. Good. What would be your favorite quote?
One that I keep on coming back to is, the optimist expects the wind, the pessimist gives out about the wind, and the realist adjusts the sails.
It's good.
I guess that type of approach is a lot of what I would like to do, and I would advise with other people, is you get to choose. And those 3 roles are one of the roles you can choose every single day. And the joy of that choice is you get to live with the benefit from making that choice. And all it is a choice. And it's just a mindset thing. It's like what we said earlier on about the word yet. It's a choice. So yeah, that's one that I really resonate with.
Super. It's a good one to end on. And just before we wrap up, Stephen, how can people reach out to you, maybe avail of your services, get in touch to coaching?
I'm available pretty much everywhere. I'm on Twitter as Timesworth, at Timesworth. I'm on Facebook. Website's under review at the moment, so you can get me easiest on the phone, 087 2849 089, or by email, and that's Stephen@Confident.ie.
Okay, Stephen@Confident.ie, or the phone number as well, folks. So, Stephen McDonnell, thanks a million for coming on the Bootcast, and best of luck. Mind yourself, and keep the fire burning.
It's been a pleasure, Eugene. Thanks a million.
Cheers. Thanks a million. Bye bye. Bye bye.